Welcome to 2026.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so over the past week or so, I've listened to a good amount of really fun podcasts, some good stuff, got caught up on some things, been a lot happening. But a question hit me while I was listening to these podcasts.
Okay.
Is it okay to judge someone based on their friend group?
That's interesting. Okay, so I would say to some degree, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Is it okay to judge people based solely on their friend group? Like remove them. Like if I was describing just someone's friend group, do you think that'd be a fair way to judge them? I agree. I think the answer is yes. But it kind of makes me think about some of the friendships I have.
I would say it's to a degree.
Okay.
There will always be, I don't know, I kind of feel like there's always some amount of that friend group that reflects on that person, regardless of how different they may be.
Mm-hmm.
To some degree, it always plays a factor, I would say. Do you agree with that?
I'll agree with that because a lot of these friendships are a lot of them are two-way. It's not often a friendship is truly just you're just giving and only influencing. A lot of times it's an influence back.
Yeah, I
and
don't
a
know
back
that
and
you
forth.
can even have a relationship of that type. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe in some very rare situations, but relationships go both ways.
Yeah. So really, it comes down. One thing I'm chewing on is what is a friend at that point here? Like the version of me that you know is different than the version of me that my coworkers know.
Right. Yes. You're a different person to each individual that you come in contact with.
Right. Everyone has a different version of me in their head. And if you caught me when I cut you off on the road, it's not who I always am. I'm sorry. I didn't see you. But it's really beside the point. But back to the whole friend thing. I'm real curious about what impact and is it fair to judge others based on their friends? That's kind of where I'm hanging out right now.
I would say that it's fair to at least make an assessment of someone based on their friends. Should that rule all of your determinations about said person? Maybe not. I'd have to think about and chew on that one. But I think at least it's fair to say that you can make some amount of a determination about them based on their friend group. Because like we just said, no matter how hard you try, to some degree, the people you spend your time with do influence you, no matter who they are or how hard you try to or not be influenced. So yes, I think it can. I think the degree to which you are influenced maybe is the variable there that changes.
Mm-hmm. And maybe the purpose behind each of those friendships. Like, we have friends who definitely influence us more than a different set of people who may not be full friends, but a more acquaintance, that kind of a situation.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you hang out with people because you want to help them. And then sometimes you hang out with people because you want help.
Yes. Maybe a better way to put that, and I think what you're getting at there, is how you pursue the relationship dictates how the relationship affects you. So, like, if it's a relationship that you're very invested in and you're pursuing and you want to further that relationship, I think you being invested in it probably plays a little bit more of a role in how that affects you, maybe a larger percent. But if it's more so a relationship that you are maintaining, but you're not necessarily pursuing, the other person is maybe pursuing, but you're okay with it, but it's not, like a relationship that you're overly focused on. Sure. That one probably doesn't have as much of an effect on you as the other one.
Got it, because the latter one has less heart.
Yes.
That I'm putting into it. It's
Yes.
more of, look, the status quo is okay. It is what it is. I could take it. I could leave it. I mean, it'd probably be a little sad if it was gone, but it's not the end of the world. But in this. So an old technique when you would hire someone, if you were hiring someone from a really important position, it would not be uncommon. I mean, we all put this on our resumes, some references. But what if the employer actually called on those references? And then those people were honest and didn't just make it up.
I think you'd have some people without jobs. You'd have. I wonder what the percentage of people is that just slap names on the resume.
Absolutely. Yeah, because if I was a betting man, I'm going to guess the purpose of asking for references is not to call the references. It's to ask, can you produce references? Not, what will the references say?
But anymore, people would just make up a name and put it on there.
Exactly.
Now, so for me, the tradition that I grew up in was not only did you have references that were legitimate, but that you asked the person if you could put them as a reference before
Absolutely.
you did. So there was a few individuals when I first made my very first resume that I called and I said, hey, I'm making a resume. Do you mind if I put you down as a reference? And obviously they said yes, but I feel like that's not something that people practice anymore. They just pick someone, they maybe even make somebody up, they just throw them on there because nobody calls references.
Right. And I think the not calling references, I think, is twofold. One, I do think it's litigious. Like, you can't really release anything. Did this person work here? Well, if I say yes or no, now my company's in trouble.
Yeah.
But it's what do you say? Now, because you wouldn't really put a reference of someone who's going to give you a bad review, most likely.
No.
You're probably only going to say, so it almost defeats the purpose of the reference. But if someone says, I can't provide any references, that kind of tells you more stuff about them.
I would think so, but I think today's market, and maybe this is a conversation for another time, but I think the job market is much different than it was 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. And obviously I wasn't around then, but just based on the data that is available.
You're not 50 years old.
I'm not 50. I know I look like it, but no, I think it's changed a lot, and that was more of a practice in previous years than it is today.
You know, that makes sense, because the purpose back then would be, hey, do you have someone who can vouch for your character, for your work ethic? And in the pre-internet days, you really had to rely on that.
Well, especially in the situations where you were looking for a job in a local market, where having those references were people that your employer would have known. Mm-hmm. So putting down Mr. Smith, who owned the local bank or whatever, having that as a reference would have been a much higher play card than it is today. Mm-hmm. But
I mean, like right now, let's say I wanted to hire somebody, I would pull them up on any form of internet social media.
Yep.
And
Indeed, LinkedIn.
Do they have a public X page? Do they have a public Instagram, Facebook?
Yep.
Any of them. And then you can look at, what they have on there, but then you look at connected people.
Yep. Who do they know?
Mm-hmm. And if that entire list is blank people, the profile is fake.
Yeah. Well, I think that ties back to our original point, which is, can you make a decision about someone based on who they know? Mm-hmm. And I think the answer is definitely yes. And I think there's an important aspect to the friendship-specific part of that. Mm-hmm. When you ask the question, can you make a judgment on somebody, especially their character, based on their friends? And I think what happens a lot, and I see this, is people are friends with someone just because they feel like that's the right thing to do, or they want to be nice. It's a nice person, so I'm going to be nice to them and spend time with them, etc. I think that's where a lot of it goes. But nobody stops to think, is me associating with this said person having an impact on my life? Nobody stops to think that. Somebody asks you, hey, man, you want to go out, come over for whatever, or, you want to hang out. You don't think that when they ask you that. But if they're a nice person and you like them or whatever, you're like, yeah, I'll do that. But I think that's what happens a lot of times, and then eventually you develop a relationship with them. And, good or bad, indifferent, that's how it goes.
If you believed that you could be judged based on the character of your friends, would that change how we pick certain friends and relationships?
I absolutely think it would. And I think that's something that most people aren't ready for. I think most people would get very upset, and I'm sure you'll have some people out there that disagree with this and say, oh, how wrong we are. But I truly believe that if you sat down and looked at every person's 5 closest friends and you said, okay, from a perspective of just the positive or negative influence they have on your life or likely have on your life, you should or shouldn't be friends with this person.
Ooh.
And I think people would not be ready for the amount of people that probably shouldn't be in their life.
A friendship evaluation.
Yes, because you get emotionally attached to people. You don't want to admit that they're a bad influence in your life, or even if you will admit they're a bad influence in your life, you still don't want to admit that you shouldn't hang out with them or spend time with them or be connected to them because of those said things. Now, I don't want people to get it twisted. I'm not saying if someone's only a value
add,
if someone's only a value add, that's the only time you should spend time with them. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying on a generic playing field here, you should evaluate especially the people that who have the most influence in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to be surrounded by people who want the best for you and who can help you be that and get there.
Yes. Yeah, because, and I don't know how true it is, but I think it's probably fairly true. And I think we've said it on this podcast before, which is you are the equivalent of your closest friends.
Mm-hmm.
If you sum all of your 5, 10, whatever, closest friends up, you're the sum of that.
Mm-hmm.
What that equals. So a good example here is if you're trying to be a millionaire and you're not connected to anyone of any wealth or wisdom in that area, it's going to be more difficult to get there. Whereas if you were connected to a large pool of people who were wealthy or knew a lot about that area, it would probably be easier.
Mm-hmm. And that comes back to, it's not just, it's their mentality. It's not just their lifestyle. It is their lifestyle, but it's how they live that life.
Yes.
It's not the fact that they drive a nice car. It's how did they get to drive a nice car? Oh, wow, their work ethic is X, Y, and Z. Oh, they do X, Y, and Z with their money, with their time.
Yeah.
So if you really want to have a really good aspect of your life, maybe it's time to introduce someone into your friend circle who can influence you in that way. If you want a phenomenal marriage, maybe you and your wife should try to befriend another good married couple.
Yeah.
Just to get around them.
And I think maybe it's important to be clear here, and we can use the example that you just gave. We're not saying that if you want, you're looking to have a good marriage and you've got a friend who's really struggles in that area, we're not saying go ditch the friend who's not good at relationships because they're not good at relationships, but just if he gives you some relationship advice, maybe go, maybe I should think about that first.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as just a black and white playing field there. And we can even switch this a little bit. Not so much friends, but coworkers. Coworkers play a large role in people's lives that maybe a lot of people don't realize, but your coworkers have a good amount of influence. And I think a lot of people would be surprised at how much of an influence there is in the workplace.
Mm-hmm. So let's say you are pursuing a race, pursuing the next level up in your job. One thing the person who's considering you for the promotion may do is they may go talk to 3 of your coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
just to vibe it out. I mean, hey, we're going to move him up a little bit. We should probably see how he interacts.
Yep.
And naturally, if they ask you, it's going to be phenomenal. Oh, they all love me. I'm the best. But really, we ask the coworkers. All of a sudden, it's a bit different of a vibe, different relationship. Mm-hmm. And one good or bad word there.
Yep.
That can
make
really,
yeah. And coworkers aren't the influence you get to choose.
Ooh, no, they're not.
So you have to, like friends, you can choose who your friends are. And yes, to a point, you can choose the job that you work in. But inevitably, you're going to come in contact with some coworkers that you don't really have control over. Mm-hmm. And their influence in your life, and this is maybe more prevalent for some people than others, but it's not something you can usually control. So you have to consider, how can I engage in this relationship and come out in a positive way?
Yeah, it's so interesting when you have to consider the possibility of a not short-term relationship with someone who you do not have the power to get rid of out of your life.
Yeah.
That changes how you treat people.
Yeah, a personal experience of mine in a previous job that I had, a boss that I worked for, we worked very closely together. And he wasn't what I would consider a role model at marriage advice. Okay. He had 2 kids, a fairly decent marriage, but he wasn't what I would consider a role model in that area. So, and he would often give me advice and tips and make fun of me about, whatever. And it was a joking area of ours, but, he had his way of thinking on that and I had mine. But he also had a lot of other attributes that were beneficial. So, and he had, I guess what I'm getting at is he had areas of attributes that were very beneficial for me to learn from and engage in. And then he had some areas that weren't so much. And it was beneficial for me to take the time to say, this is something that I can learn from him and I can benefit from. And this is an area where I should maybe caution myself on the advice that or influence that I get from him. Because if I look at where he's at in his life with that specific area, it's not where I want to be. But if I can look and say, in his work ethic, that is something I do want to emulate. So I take care, or did, because that was a past job, I took care to differentiate in that relationship how I engaged in it.
I like that. That's showing some wisdom of, look, I know I can learn work ethic from Jim, but Jim's marriage needs a little bit of work.
Yeah.
And so now, in this, can you judge someone by their friends? If someone only knows Jim's personal life and they don't know Jim, the work ethic,
yep,
they now think you have a bad marriage now because of Jim's item there. So while, yes, it is wise to pick and choose, because we're not going to find a perfect item here, but we do have to negotiate that pretty smoothly. Yeah. And is it fair for the other people to judge your relationship based on Jim's relationship, even though you're following Jim's work ethic, and it gets a little dicey?
Yeah.
And you can't care, but you got to care, but you can't care.
I think in that situation, that's something where when we first started this conversation, it was a point of, it's a degree of how much you can reflect on someone's relationship. Because in that situation, you could have a relationship with someone who's good in one area but struggles in another, and you can successfully benefit from the good areas and not from the bad. It's just more difficult, and you have to be intentional about it. And maybe that's a different topic for another video. But that's why I would say it's maybe not 100% fair to make a full send decision about someone based on just their friends. And maybe a real world example of this. We'll take Jim, for example. He's got a great work ethic, but he's a raging alcoholic. You work with Jim. You learn from Jim in your career. But if Jim asks you to go to the bar after work on a Friday, maybe you pass on that one.
Yeah, just because he's great at commitment in the moment, this isn't the area you want to be committed.
Yes. So to answer your question, I do think you can make some amount of a assessment of a person, but I think you can't 100% judge a person based on the friends that they have.
Mm-hmm. And if you're in that consideration box of, look, I'm considering bringing in Jim to my circle. Mm-hmm. I want to learn a little bit more. And you're going to start evaluating their friendships. If it matters enough to you to look at the friendships, it might also matter enough to you to get to know Jim. Not just solely on the friendships, but also to the person. What is his relationship with them?
Now, let me ask you this difficult question. What do you do when someone who you don't necessarily want to emulate wants to be a part of your life in a significant way, or increasingly starts to become part of your life, but you're not necessarily wanting that person's influence in your life? How do you handle that without saying, hey, I think you're a crappy person. I don't want to be around you. How do you handle that in a respectful manner?
That is difficult.
Because I think that's the real world
yeah.
application to this question is, how do you respond to people, especially the negative influence, even more so when they're already part of your life?
So I think there's a couple of different mentalities on this. One is the mentality of humility, of humbleness, where someone wants to be around you.
Yeah.
And that's a compliment in a way. That is I want to be around him. I want to be like him. Make me like Mike,
Yeah.
But while that is a compliment, you only have so many hours in a day.
Yep.
You have to prioritize who you have time for. Now, do they make the cut every time? No. Now, I think it a little depends on a little bit why they want to be around you. So if they want to be around you because they want to be better and they want to emulate you, okay, this could be you lending a hand down to help someone up. But if it's they want to hang around you because they want to drag you down, that second one, cut off, 100%.
Just wholesale cut them off.
Wholesale, because if their goal is to bring you to them and you're like, I don't want to be like you, no.
Some hard truth right there.
Absolutely. Because you don't have, maybe you have more than 24 hours in your day. I have very limited time. I have to pick and choose who I'm hanging out with, who I give my time to, and where I don't waste my time. We don't toss our pearls before swine. Mm-hmm. Respectfully to those people who are trying. Now, if you're just a crappy person because you've never taken the moment to say, oh, I should change, and all of a sudden you're hanging out with someone better who can help you, that's where that person you really hope has the humility to say, okay, I see what you're trying to do. Let me help you.
I see where you're going with that. Mm-hmm. What do you do maybe in the situation where I think a lot of people may find themselves, which is there's this person that's a part of my life. They've been a part of my life for a while. Close friend, average friend, whatever. Maybe even just a friend group, acquaintance, whatnot. But they're a part of your life nonetheless. And they're not purposefully trying to be a negative influence in your life, but they don't have a lot of character traits that you want to emulate. How do you respectfully remove them from your life without hurting someone's feelings or offending them, I guess is the way? Because inevitably you may hurt some feelings, but what's the best way to handle that, especially when they're fairly close to you? Because if it's not someone you really know, that's easy. But when you have someone who's fairly close to you, maybe even
related.
Mm.
That one's not as easy, especially if you already know, regardless of a conversation you have with them, you're probably going to have to see them next season at the family event.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple ways to go about that. There's this is just the price of being part of the group or family. That's an option. There's if we're at a group event, you just happen to not hang out with them. You just happen to be stepping out to get a drink. You happen to be talking to Grandma Marge. You know, you just don't give them really the time of day. You take the phone call that's not there. You answer that text message that you sent yourself. You remove yourself a bit from them in hopes that your absence will lead it to not be there. But
so
if
you try to gradually add some space between you and the person.
Yes. Now, if that's not going to work and they're just oblivious, they're like, "Oh, of course he loves me. Of course we've known each other forever. Of course he loves me."
Yeah.
It might be time for a quick conversation. Hey, I'd like to hang out with you less. I don't really like that you do X, Y, and Z. Can you understand why I don't like X, Y, and Z?
That's the conversation that's
uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable.
Not fun.
Very difficult.
Gonna flip some tables at dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Gonna cause some family rifts.
Yep.
Possibly. All the above.
Yeah. Or the friend that thinks you're tight as a kite and
you're just about to blindside them.
Yeah.
So there is a method of, hey, you do one more deposit into that friendship that you don't really want, and the deposit is we're going to dinner because I'm going to tell you that I don't want to be around you. And it's for this reason. Now, if you were to change this aspect of your life, or I need to see you on a better path, because
maybe that's the better way to approach it is you have this and this that you do or is a part of you that I don't appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
For me to continue to be in your life, I would like to see that change.
Sure. So let's use the raging alcoholic one. Mm-hmm. It's a really clear-cut example, so tailor it appropriately for your group. But if every time you see this guy, he's drunk, no matter what time of day, it's 5 o'clock somewhere to him, it's okay to say, I can't be around you when you're this way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's real easy to see when it's alcohol. Another equivalent would be maybe they're high all the time, strung out on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Or the harder one, but it kind of probably more relevant, is they have a particular aspect of their personality.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like maybe they're hyper negative. Every third word is a swear word because for some reason their vocabulary stopped. Something like that. They're annoying. They're overly political, anti-religious, overly religious, anti-anything. Whatever that aspect of their personality is, that just becomes too much to deal with. At that point, if you I shudder to say this. If you love them, maybe you pull them aside and tell them.
Yep.
And if you love them, oh my golly, that would imply that if you don't tell them and you just let them live that horrible existence that everyone's talking about, no one will say it because everyone doesn't want to make Uncle Jim too uncomfortable. Oh, does that mean we don't love Uncle Jim?
Or that you're not showing him the love.
Oh, that hurts. I'm sorry, Uncle Jim. Imaginary Uncle Jim.
Well, I I think we've got some good points on this, but I do want to point out two things on this, the last points of this part. And that is, one, I want to make it clear that we're not suggesting that you should just start cutting people out of your life because they're minor inconvenience. That's not what we're saying.
They blow bubbles with their bubble gum, so you're like, you're out.
Yeah, we're trying to facilitate positive change in people's life, and that's what this is about. If someone you know is just minorly annoying, that's not what we're talking about in this situation. On the flip side of that coin, it's easy for us to sit here and talk about this type of a conversation, a mentality, and a change, but it's much harder to apply this in real life. So don't take it as we don't understand how difficult those choices and conversations can be. It's easy to talk about it. It's really hard to find that real world application. So kudos to the people that can or are able to or have, and Godspeed to the people that need to, because that's a hard thing to do. It
takes courage to put yourself out there to say, I want to be part of this friend group, or I need to help remove someone from my life, or my family needs me to talk to these people. That courage, a lot of prayer, a lot of love, and do your best. We're all just trying out here.
Yeah. Yep. Best of luck to you on those conversations. Yeah. So, see you next time.